I'm here at Rodney Parade, home of Newport County, just one of 70 plus EFL teams affiliated with Her Game Too. In a moment, I'm going to be catching up with one of the trailblazing and inspirational women who are heading Her Game Too. And to find out a little bit more about her backstory, growing up as a South Asian woman in the valleys, and also finding out about Her Game Too and how it works within Wales. I'm delighted to be joined here with Roopa Vyas, director of Her Game Too and founder of Her Game Too Cymru. So Roopa, obviously we're going to delve into those roles a little bit in the future, but could you talk a little bit about yourself and your journey in football so far?
Yeah, I'm a lifelong football fan. All I've ever known is football, to be honest. Started supporting Liverpool from a very, very young age, and yeah, I've just been surrounded by football my whole life, so it's just been sort of part of everything that I do. As I grew up, started following Liverpool home and away as well, and that's just a huge reason why I joined Her Game Too, and kind of gone into that side of the sport.
So being an advocate for women in football and women's football in general, is that a role you ever saw yourself taking up? You know, you talked there as growing up being a Liverpool sport. Is that something you always thought you'd step into, or is this a completely new journey for you?
I think it's quite new, to be honest. It's something that I never expected to do, but naturally just kind of fell into. I just see myself as someone who represents a lot of people. Obviously I'm a woman, I represent female fans, but obviously representing South Asian fans in football as well. I'm a minority in many aspects, so yeah, just to be able to represent people, and I think I just naturally fell into that role from other experiences, just gaining confidence as well, and yeah, it's not something I ever imagined I'd do, but I'm so glad I do it now.
You talked about being a football fan growing up. Are there any particular memories that sort of sparked your love for football?
I think I was watching with my older brother, so he doesn't support the same team as me, which is, it was quite interesting growing up, especially for my parents, having to choose sides when we argue all the time. But I think, you know, growing up, supporting a team, having that passion, I think that's what drew me more to Liverpool as well, to have that rivalry with my brother. But then watching Wales with him as well, so we managed to come together to watch games as well, which was really nice. And yeah, I think just being part of a very sporty family, a male-dominated family, I could just kind of join in with everything. So, yeah, it was really nice being part of that, and I think that's why I'm so passionate about it.
So you talked about, you know, your sort of childhood growing up in an Indian household. How has that sort of formed you from a younger age, and what was that sort of environment like growing up in the valleys, you know, and being in an Indian household? Yeah,
so we were, I mean, I think we still are the only brown family in the street, so we do stand out. In Caerphilly, there are, you know, more Asians around now, and there's a community, and in Cardiff there's a huge community, so we've always been part of that. But being an Asian who likes football and a female Asian who likes football, it was something very different. So in my house, I was safe. You know, I've got cousins, I've got family who love the sport. But outside of the house, you know, when my mum speaks to her friends and family and says, oh, she's gone to the football, or she's watching the football, or I've missed family events or engagements and weddings and things to watch football, and it's just a bit of an eye-opener for them, and they're just a bit like, oh, that's not normal. But I think my family have learned to embrace it as well. I think now, seeing the work that I do and the positives of that, and the fact that I'm helping people through sport, they've seen sort of where my passion comes from, and that it's not as bad as they initially, you know, had perceptions of it. Everyone's got stereotypical perceptions of football fans, and I think, you know, they grew up in a time where football was quite rough and wasn't for women to be in those sort of stands. So yeah, I think they've kind of seen the positives that come from it as well.
You talked about your passion for men's football. You're obviously a very passionate Liverpool fan. How is that sort of new role that you've come into as an ambassador for the club? How has that sort of come about for you, and how does that make you feel?
So the role came about because Her Game Too was about 10 months or less than that, 10 months old, and I was just like, there's no Liverpool ambassador. I go home and away. This was kind of still during COVID time as well, so it was less football to go to, but yeah, I just thought, you know, there's a space for me there. I'd love to represent female fans, and they were like, welcome on board. Built a relationship up with the club, which then took us a year later to partner in officially. For me to do that and to build that relationship means a lot. Like, as a fan, I never expected to have that level of relationship with the football club. I know it is individuals within like the EDI department and the impact department at the club, but to have that and to represent the football club essentially is huge, especially being from Wales. I'm not a Scouser, but I lived up there for a couple of years as well. I love the city, the culture and everything about the people. So yeah, to do that, and then being an Indian who has had her face plastered on the cop up there, I think it's huge. And for me, hearing from other people that, I'm representing them is huge. I just, never imagined I'd do it, but it just fit in perfectly with my life. It's given me a lot more purpose. And I'm just really, really pleased that I can do that for people.
That's amazing. You sort of talked there about being, the face of a lot of people. Obviously, your ethnicity is one that's sort of underrepresented in the media, in football, not only on and off the pitch as well. What are you doing to sort of spread awareness and sort of push more South Asian voices and faces to be the faces of football, women's football, men's football?
I think mainly just letting them know that they can be part of it. So one of the main things for me was when I started doing some media work, for example, there was no one else there, and I saw it as an opportunity. Like I could be that first person, whereas some other people may think, oh no, it's not a space for me because there's no one like me. So seeing that and then seeing other people say, oh, okay, well I felt more comfortable because you've been doing it, and clearly it's a decent environment to be in. And I guess also just working with other people who may not be of the same background in that industry to understand what they can do to make them feel comfortable. And it's just about normalising it again. Like it always comes back to that, just making it normal for them. And then just like speaking to communities. So I speak to people who go to my temple in Cardiff just to make them aware that like this is what I'm doing. If you want to join in, if you think your daughter might be interested or someone else, even an older generation could be interested, come along and come and see what it's like it's not all bad. And just making them feel part of it. There's loads of opportunities out there. There's a lot going on. The FAW are doing a lot as well to bring more people in. So I think just making them aware is the main thing, because sometimes these opportunities are posted online on the football club's page or the organisation's page, and they may not follow it to see it. So just highlighting it really.
You talked a lot there about sort of bringing new people into the game. Obviously, with Her Game Too and Her Game Too Cymru, you've worked with a lot of fans in the first time fans initiative. Sort of how has that come about, and what sort of impact have you seen it make?
So with Her Game Too Cymru, we first did it for a Wales game. Unfortunately, it was the Armenia game that we ended up losing. But I just wanted to bring a group of South Asian female fans to their first ever game. I saw it as an opportunity because a lot of women do go to Wales games. It is a very diverse crowd in that sense. But South Asian women, again, especially in that immediate area of Cardiff City Stadium, just don't seem to want to attend. We are the minority. That's something that me and my brother notice every time we go into the grandstand, that in our block we are one of a few brown faces in the crowd and we're not represented. So I approached the FAW and just said, can we get a bunch of tickets, work with Emma Cymru, the South Asian Wales supporters group, and bring South Asian female fans to the game. We did it. It was a huge success. People started watching football more. They started even just on TV watching it or coming along to games. We did a screening after that as well then for the away leg, and it just came across a huge success. And then some of the other girls in Her Game Too did it at Bristol Rovers, just a small scale, and brought a few fans to their first ever game for a dedicated fixture. We had young fans, older fans, just engaging with it. So then we pitched it to EA Sports, which was huge. And it was our opportunity to then partner with a huge organisation like them. They've got connections with EFL and Premier League clubs as well as individual clubs. So then, they provide the tickets and we provide the experience, essentially.
Have you seen a sort of growth then in more of those people that have gone to the first game initiatives actually going and repeating and going to more games?
Absolutely. I think especially where tickets are accessible. So we took 5 female fans to their first ever Liverpool game, and Liverpool tickets are like gold dust. So for them, it was more just being able to experience that as well as like possibly a once-in-a-lifetime thing, really. But it's encouraged them to get memberships and get involved or go out and watch the game on the weekends, and instead of just watching it and being quiet at home. So, but where tickets are more accessible, we've seen people starting to go, or they go together with other first-time fans that they met on the day. I think it's just beautiful that we can do that.
Yeah, it's truly inspirational and, amazing that you can actually get people these opportunities where, you know, they're in a sort of comfortable environment where they can actually visit games and feel part of something as well. You talked there about dedicated fixtures. That's something that you've obviously worked a lot with teams in the EFL, teams that in Wales with Her Game Too. Recently you've had one with Wrexham as well. So how does a dedicated fixture look?
So it varies club to club, but essentially it'll be just signposting Her Game Too and celebrating the partnership. We want to keep it as positive as possible because we do have to talk about the negatives throughout the year. You know, we get reports of abuse and misogynistic behaviour, so we want to make sure that we're keeping this positive.
Yeah.
It's usually around International Women's Day, which is a great time to celebrate. Clubs are usually doing something related anyway. But yeah, we'll get players in Her Game Too t-shirts just to highlight it. That will make fans who've never heard of us before look and think, oh, what's that? And they'll Google it. It'll be, you know, LED boards everywhere and just kind of highlighting and signposting what the organisation is. And then yeah, we also have, like, sometimes they'll highlight females who work for the club, work around the club. They'll get, you know, they'll have girl flag bearers. Yeah. They'll have, like, guard of honour. They'll get mascots in. It varies a lot, but it's great that, you know, clubs can kind of make it their own as well, and just celebrate, you know, the work we're doing together.
So you talked there a lot about, obviously, the negatives that inevitably are going to have to be addressed. And you do some amazing work to sort of file reports for these negative experiences. You yourself, have you ever experienced sort of any negative, have you ever had a negative experience on the terraces?
I have, but it's mostly casual stuff, things that, you know, happen sort of day to day, and things that we kind of just brush off, and just, I thought it was part of me being, you know, the only woman in a big crowd of men. So, you know, little things as well, like if you're in the pub and you're passing through a crowd and they'll, you know, touch your waist and that sort of thing, where if a guy walked past, they'd just have their hands in it, sort of thing. So things like that. Having to prove that I'm a fan, you know, name the players. Even recently I had it, like, name a player that's not Mo Salah. Yeah. I've been to so many football games, like probably more than those people are asking me. So it's just, I don't get why women have to prove themselves. But yeah, it's happened quite a lot. Luckily, I've not had anything too negative, and I think that's just sort of credit to the friends that I go to the matches with as well. But unfortunately, we have had some pretty bad reports, you know, ones that are even hard to read, let alone experience. But yeah, the fact that we can, you know, support fans going through that, and with our collaboration with Kick It Out as well, we've kind of maximised the support we can offer, and I guess, you know, the action that can be taken as well.
You talked there about, you know, sort of things that are seen as sort of like casual misogyny, things that are just historically have happened through generation to generation. What can, not only you guys at Her Game Too, but, you know, I'm talking about male football fans as well, what can we do to sort of stop this behaviour happening at football and make it a more welcoming environment?
I think just call it out, you know. Most of the time it's just a case of, mate, that's not okay. And just telling your friends, especially when it is your friend, it is hard sometimes to address it. And most of the time they're doing it just to get a reaction from their mates. So if you just don't give them that reaction and don't entertain it, people are going to stop. And I think it's, yeah, just being supportive of, you know, the people around you. A lot of people as well realise what is wrong once they've, you know, got a daughter or they've got a sister that goes to the games, or some people as well. We were speaking to somebody a couple of weeks ago and they're like, I've been going to the games since, you know, the 70s with my mother. And, you know, that's probably wasn't normal then, but now, you know, it is the new thing. You know, we've got female fans who are having children and taking their children along to their first ever games. So, yeah, I think just calling it out is the main thing. You know, it doesn't have to be a big deal. It doesn't have to turn into an argument. And as long as, you know, that person feels safe and comfortable to do so, then just tell people to pack it in, essentially, and just keep it calm. Yeah.
Obviously, moving on now to talk a little bit about your career path. I know it's not necessarily, you know, this role isn't necessarily a full-time job, but it is like a full-time job. Could you sort of explain a little bit about your job now, your new job role, and also how you sort of balance not only working a full-time job, but working for Her Game Too, being a director of the charity and all these different aspects?
Yeah, so the word balance wasn't in my dictionary for a while, to be honest, since I joined. So I joined as the ambassador and then kind of just got more involved. And I think it was just because I'm so passionate about it that it just naturally, even though I had a full-time job, at the time I was working in a lab, I had long days, like 8 hours on my feet, and then come home and just sat on my laptop doing things. But I think it's the fact that, we've got so many other passionate people as well, it really drives me. So my career was in pharmaceuticals up until this week. And then I think through the work I've done with Her Game Too and the impact I've had on people, and I think I realised like that's where I belong. I've now started a role in EDI in a different industry, not in sport, but it just allows me to sort of widen my knowledge of it, gain a lot of valuable experience and work on some really important things. So yeah, I think, I've learned to get that balance, and I think, changing career now will really benefit Her Game Too. So they both go hand in hand for me. But yeah, having 2 jobs is never going to be easy, but I think it's just realising that you do have to take time for yourself. I have had times where I've taken a week off where, things are a bit calmer, there's not a lot happening, that I can, trust my colleagues and the team that I manage to kind of keep things going for a week while I step away and just take a breather. And I think, mental health is important. And with Her Game Too as well, we offer all our volunteers some mental health support through an app called Nelp. So the fact that we can partner with organisations like that and do that, I think just really helps everyone get a balance, really.
You talked there about, obviously, it's a volunteering role. How important are volunteers, not only in football in general, but obviously in women's football and sort of the advocacy around women in football? How important are volunteers to sort of pushing forward and dispelling all the negative stereotypes?
I mean, they're the heartbeat of it, really. I think a lot of, especially in women's sport, we rely on volunteers. So, having volunteers is a huge part of everything going on in this sort of space. And there's other organisations as well that are volunteer led, but I think for us as well, we need to find a sustainable model where we can be volunteers but also manage, like you said, the day job and manage all the other aspects that come with it. So that's something that we're working on in the background and trying to kind of find the right people to work with to do that. But ultimately, it is going to be a lot of reliance on people to give up their own time, but people are so passionate about it that it's not really difficult to find someone to get involved.
You talked there about passionate people as well, and I bet you've worked with some really inspirational people. Was there anyone growing up or now that inspires you?
I think my biggest inspiration, I've said it quite recently as well, is probably Jurgen Klopp. And it's not just because I'm a Liverpool fan. I think he's done a lot of stuff off the pitch where if you've read his books and you've watched interviews of his, he's just one of those people that's very driven and very focused, but he's got that community aspect and that volunteering aspect. As soon as he left Liverpool, he became an honorary ambassador for their foundation. He's coming back to run their gala event, which is obviously going to generate income. And I think he knows the influence he has. And for me, it's something that I want to be able to do as well. If I can, obviously on a much smaller scale, I'm not Jurgen Klopp at all, but he's definitely inspired me a lot the last several years.
And you've obviously met Jurgen Klopp as well. How was that sort of experience?
Oh, it was unreal. Firstly, just being in that room. So as I walked into the end of season party, I walked in, Kenny Dalglish was right there, Ian Rush is on the other side of the room, and I was like, I've met Rushy already, so I was a little bit calmer, but Kenny Dalglish was there, and I was like, my heart started going, and then all the players went on the stage, and they were doing like an end of season presentation, and I was just like, I'm breathing the same air as Mo Salah. Virgil van Dijk was right there, all the players were there, and it was just, surreal. But then meeting Jurgen Klopp, it's one of those moments that I'll replay in my head forever. He was sat on his own. My friend who works for Liverpool took me over and introduced me, and the music was loud, so he had to whisper in his ear, so I don't know what he said, but Jurgen was like, "Oh, great to meet you," gave me a hug. He was quite drunk at this point, but it was his last day of work, so I don't blame him. His cap was on backwards at that point as well. I mentioned Her Game Too, and I told him what it's about. I had a little pin badge for him, and I gave it to him, and he said, "Why have I never heard about this before?" And it was one of those things that I still I tell people this all the time, because I was like, it's one of those things that I wanted to bring to him, but it's so difficult to access players and managers, especially of his level. But the fact that he literally said, "Why have I not heard about this? I love everything about this. Like, obviously it was a brief conversation, but the fact that he was just so into it and bought into it just means the world to me. And yeah, I got a hug off him, so that was my life complete.
So I think a nice way to sort of end it then is, where do you see yourself in the next 5 years, and where do you see sort of Her Game Too in the next 5 years?
So hopefully a funded organisation, so I can stop telling everyone we're an unfunded organisation, and then hopefully it's something that I can do sort of part-time alongside my other jobs, and then maybe by the end of the 5 years full-time. But I can see us growing, developing those connections with the clubs. We've got 80 of the 92 partnered. We've got France. Hopefully we're going to expand across Europe as well. Hopefully in 5 years we're global, so I can just say Her Game Too worldwide. But yeah, 5 years is a long time, so we'll see.
It was great to hear from someone who's a pioneer in the women's game, not only promoting ethnic minorities, but also promoting the women's game in Wales and across the country, being an ambassador for Liverpool. I think everyone will agree that Roopa's story is really inspirational, and she's someone who should be looked up to by girls all across the country.